in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Salute, salute. Word 'em up, word 'em up, word 'em up. Welcome to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Go ahead and click that like button, click the subscribe and notification bell. All right, and share the stream as you come in, because today we're going to talk about taking the path less traveled, doing something new, breaking away from the crowd. It is something that people claim to want on many levels. On the surface level, we talk about wanting something new, craving novelty, trying to travel, get new experiences, and learn new things, if you will. It's a desire that people claim to have from time to time. It's an itch that they claim to want to scratch. On a deeper level, they also talk about wanting to be authentic, to not just copy, not just want to keep up with the Joneses, but want to strike out their own path and whatnot. Okay, and therefore, okay, in the world of, shall we say, expressing yourself and getting ish done, business, whatever it may be, this question of how to keep up with those models of yours whom you find to be authentic, and to strike out and do something new, how to break free from the cage, either ideologically or in other ways, is an interesting thing, right? So I'm trying something new today, Dr. Thunder, even though you were calling me out for it. I'm sitting down. How come you're the only one that gets to sit down in these streams? Is this is this
yeah, I'm gonna start standing up now, because we have to have a certain needs to be a balance, you know.
Yeah, it is, that's exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, people are caught up in mimetic rivalry. Okay, people are caught up in copying each other, or opposing each other, right? Similar to what you just said, which is, oh, since you're sitting down, now I'm going to stand up. Like, it's the same thing. Whether you're copying somebody or you're trying to be opposite of somebody, you guys are locked in the same kind of dance. Okay.
I have a story. I've got an office.
Oh, okay, The Office. Go ahead. Let us know.
That's right.
Which one of the characters are involved in this one?
That's right. So it's Michael, and
is Michael the boss, by the way?
Yeah. Michael is the manager. He's the general manager.
Main character, the kind of okay.
Yeah. And Ryan, who started as an intern, and then rose through the ranks and actually ended up being, well, momentarily became Michael's boss, and then got busted for embezzlement and some other stuff. So he got busted for that, and then Michael's company, Michael decides to leave Dunder Mifflin, starts his own company, hires Ryan, and then so magically Ryan ends up with the job back when Dunder Mifflin buys Michael back out. Okay, so that's a So anyhow, Michael and Ryan have a strange relationship, because though Michael is his boss, and he is hired as a temp, he has some sort of affinity for Ryan. Like, Ryan's the cool guy, and he's trying to, he's trying to be on Ryan's good side, and he wants Ryan to like him and stuff like that. It's just really strange. So anyhow, Ryan, decides to grow a goatee. So he starts wearing a goatee, and Michael's like, "Oh, you got a goatee? Oh, that's neat." So then, like, the next scene, and of course it's, it's like a couple weeks later. Now Michael's got a goatee, and then so Ryan is like, "Why does this cat have a goatee?" So then he cuts his goatee off because now Michael has a goatee. He didn't want to be the cat that had the same thing as the boss. And then Michael calls him out and said, "Why did you cut off your goatee?" "Well, because you had a goatee, because you copied me. Stop doing what I'm doing already." So, yeah.
Yeah, this is a major pattern in the way in families, in communities, in amongst individuals. I always talk about the baby and the red ball, right? There's this thing, it's like a quantum entanglement, okay? That is like a law of nature with human beings. Okay. You're not gonna get away from it, but it's not so, "Oh no, I noticed it. I'm the only one whom advertising doesn't work on, whom copying models doesn't work on, whom doesn't get in this mimetic little dances with the rest of everybody." Okay, great. But anyways, people still claim also to Dr. Thunder, right? That they want this iconoclastic, authentic experience, that they would like to be unique, that they would like to not just get in this kind of competitive copying the Joneses and keeping up with the Joneses type stuff, right?
It's derivative.
Go ahead.
You don't want to be derivative.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on well, let's get into it. Let's get into it because shout out here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna be reviewing a book called 0 to 1, and I did a review on this book. You can check my book review playlist. Right, it's called 0 to 1. It's about startups. So there's something about startups that is quite relevant to what we're talking about striking a new path, starting something new. Okay, and this is startups in the technology sector. So it's not just starting a better accounting firm. It's about starting something, creating a new technology, and then starting the business. So it's all about that path less traveled, a new idea, new, authentic, and whatnot. And how does one give advice to someone to start something new? It is oxymoronic in a certain sense. Like if you, Dr. Thunder, are an iconoclastic person, particularly individuated, and someone comes to you and says, "Hey, how do I be a Dr. Thunder?" In a certain sense, that's a wrong question to ask, right? Because to be
Right.
Dr. Thunder is to not copy Dr. Thunder, but to strike a path. The Dr. Thunder lane is already taken, and to copy Dr. Thunder is to, by definition, find some other lane to be an individual with regards to, right? Or am I talking out of my?
No, that's totally totally true.
Yeah, so that's the issue. Well, that's an issue to start with. I don't know if you have anything to say about it right now in terms of like maybe students that there's a tension, obviously, with the copying of models versus trying to also find your path. Before we start, anything to say about that?
Yeah, this is a challenge because in order to be really great and to do so quickly, in other words, to speed up your progress, you want to eliminate reinventing the wheel as much as possible. So you want to, as much as you can, learn from other people's mistakes. You remember my 3 kinds of, people, or, you got fools, simpletons, and the wise. The fool never learns. The simpleton can only learn from their own experience, which is very expensive and inefficient. The wise learns from other people's mistakes, learns from other people's experiences, takes their word for it, and moves on from there, So so the challenge is, if you really want to be unique and an individual and all like this, how much of other people's path do you emulate and learn from? And how much of it do you just realize that it's going to have to be different because, you're trying to do something that is different. Maybe you're trying to do something that's never been done before, or you're trying to do it in a way that it hasn't been done before. Okay, but the bottom line is that no matter how much you try to copy someone else, you're never really going to copy them that well. So you could actually be attempting to totally mimic someone exactly, and other than sort of doing so in a sort of derivative, sort of empty of meaning, empty of sort of depth and stuff kind of way, all of the stuff that actually made the person you're emulating them is all that depth and all that other stuff that you probably won't be able to copy. So even when you do try to copy, you can't really copy. I mean, you can use certain things as a guide. And like I said, the wise learns from other people's mistakes. You can do that, but ultimately you're still an individual, and the nature of reality is such that we are locked within our own perspective. And so we do not have the ability to perceive with an objectivity what really makes another person them in aspects of their journey that they had to do the way that they did them because of circumstances, or because of the way that they're wired, or because of a thousand reasons. So it's kind of an interesting sort of puzzle.
Yeah, and that's very well put there. That is very well put. And we might have some guidelines and some signposts as we go ahead and play this video here with regards to, if one does not know perhaps positively where to go, where does one not want to go, right? One can start by not at least copying the Joneses, let's say, if one wants to try to be authentic, or at least to ask, why do I want that thing that the Joneses have, right?
Yeah.
And because to become self-aware about it changes the whole quality of this mimesis, this copy, and this kind of blind, Anyways, let's see. Shout out, fair use.
I think you have the mute on. I was noticing that. Yeah.
Fair use. Click that like button.
Teaching entrepreneurship or writing about entrepreneurship, there's a big challenge in it, because I think there is no single formula. As you could tell from the last few speakers, it's always a very, very different story.
Again, this book is about a startup, and we're using it to look at this idea of taking the path less traveled, of not copying the Joneses, of not following a beaten path, right? Of quote unquote expressing your own, perhaps that maybe you think it's a particular gift that you have that you want to make manifest in the world. Just because you have the gift doesn't mean it's going to be easy. So how does one go about finding that, really believing in it, and then striking out on that path, right? So looking at startups in the technology field is a good place to kind of study that kind of idea, if you will.
Story. And I think every moment in the history of business, every moment in the history of technology happens only once. The next Mark Zuckerberg will not be building a social networking site. The next Larry Page will not be building a search engine. The next Bill Gates will not be building an operating system company. If you're copying these people, in some sense, you're not learning from them. And this is why I think there is no science to business. Science starts with the number 2. It starts with things that are repeatable and experimentally verifiable in one way or another. Whereas I think every great company is one of a kind, and the question of how do you get from 0 to 1? And so the starting point for my book, 0 to 1, is this sort of anti-formulaic approach. It's to take this question of singularity and uniqueness as the central question. And I try to get at it through a variety of sort of contrarian questions. What great business is nobody building? Tell me something that's true that nobody agrees with you on. These are often quite hard questions to answer because we think it's hard to come up with some new truth, or it often requires courage because you often have to go against conventional wisdom. And
going against conventional wisdom and having the courage, and something that D here says on the chat, okay, which is being a misfit helps in this particular regard, okay? And is this something that you kind of you test for this in terms of like, do you when assessing, let's say, students or people, in terms of like, and this may not be something that you're judging them on either metaphysically or in terms of academia or whatever, but this seeing to see if people are iconoclastic, if they are always within the Overton window or within the political correct frame, or always saying the things that that you would expect them to say, or if they're a little bit off, a little bit weird, a little bit of a misfit, saying, is that something that you look for, value, notice at all?
Yeah, that's so in the arts, you encounter a lot of folks with unusual sort of personalities, unusual quirkiness, and the arts community tends to sort of almost deify eccentricity. It's like, if you're really an eccentric, then it's like that means that you've really arrived. If you're like the really weird, or if you're like a big jerk, like a diva, erratic, like you don't know which version nobody ever knows which version of you they're going to get. It's almost like a I don't know. It's like it's like a mythical. It adds to the sort of mystery and mystique, and after all, taking in information, taking in art, much of it is about the presentation, and it's about sort of stirring up a sort of drama that sort of gets you in the right mood and the right place to be able to receive the art in the ideal fashion and in the way that'll be most impactful, most titillating, most awe-inspiring, and so all of these other kind of stuff that really has nothing to do with art, because you're dealing with people, they put all this other stuff that I find actually quite annoying and irritating.
What you're saying is quite interesting, because you're in an environment where certain characteristic, a certain quality, a certain attribute, in this case, being a wildcat, has been given a certain currency, has certain power,
Right.
has certain value, and now the whole thing is to copy that thing. Okay, the whole thing is to
Right.
try to counterfeit and that now becomes the subject of mimesis and copying and fakery. Right, so it's interesting.
Right.
Interesting. So in your world, trying to find the authentic person is to try to weed out all the fake seeming eccentricities that people are putting on. So it's adds an extra layer of BS detector you have to have, I guess.
And the sort of the irony, I suppose it's irony, or the okay, so the irony is that the Academy is not really the place. I don't know how to. I'm not sure how to say this. I'm not sure that this eccentricity is really compatible with the Academy, right? So, so now you have this sort of, you're trying to mash these things together that it's a little bit of oil and water. But at least the Academy has a, with the tenure system, has a way to sort of protect people that are divas or jerks or can't play well with others or whatever it is, so long as they can behave long enough to get tenure. It's very strange, because there's and then that makes managing, being in an administrative sort of position, trying to manage all of that and still hold people accountable to deadlines and X, Y, and Z. And when they're like, you know, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
I would submit to you that, a university is more like a government than a business. A business, when it calcifies, gets corrupt, gets weird, gets out of touch with the reality, does not work well, is inefficient, whatever it may be, it would go bankrupt and die. However, when it's government, or if it's a government influence business, right, such as, too
Right.
big to fail finance type stuff, then it doesn't die. And when you see the type of stuff, in other words, here's the
it
thing.
becomes undead.
It becomes an
It
under, and
lives
by the way, we know
forever.
that to be immortal is to be immoral, right? In a certain
Ooh.
state, perhaps not necessarily, but you see the tendency, if you're going to live forever,
No, I
no
get you.
effects, nothing. What are you going to do? It's
Yeah,
the whole-
there's a reason why there was some say it was a global flood, some say it was a local flood that killed all human beings except for Noah's family and the animals he put on the ark. There's a reason for that.
yeah. So this the university does take on that. The last fact on that is for the last 200 years, the top institutions, university-wise, are still the top institutions, right? That doesn't make any sense in any other sector whatsoever. Things have overturned 50 billion times everywhere else, How is it possible? Okay, so it's not some kind of a natural order there. It's an undead institution. But anyways, let us continue. Okay, we're talking about going from 0 to 1, and so far we're just at the beginning here in terms of how does one seek out to teach this idea of being authentic? How does one copy an authentic person? It's like, well, if you're copying an authentic person trying to find authenticity, you have missed the mark, because you're not supposed to be copying. Is the opposite of authenticity. And Dr. Thunder kind of laid out the stages, if you will, of needing to copy, needing to learn from others' mistakes and all that kind of stuff. And then we shall move on.
Clarity and uniqueness, very as the central question. And I try to get at it through a variety of sort of contrarian questions. What great business is nobody building? Tell me something that's true that nobody agrees with you on. These are often quite hard questions to answer, because we think it's hard to come up with some new truth, or it often requires courage, because you often have to go against conventional wisdom in one way or another. I want to maybe share 2 or 3 of these contrarian truths that I believe that people generally don't understand. But my book 0 to 1 is a whole set of these things that I believe to be true that most people do not agree with me on. First big truth that comes right out of this idea of unique businesses. I think that if you're a founder or entrepreneur, what you want to aim for is monopoly. You want to aim to build a company that is one of a kind, and that it's so far differentiated from the competition that it's not even competing. And I think this is the conventional wisdom, is always that capitalism and competition.
I'm going to continue here, but just so we don't lose track, what he said is a transposition, or just a different way of saying the same thing, which he has already been saying and we've been saying, which is, we don't want to compete with the Joneses. We don't want to be that. We want to strike, right? Want to be authentic. If you take that to the business landscape, what does that mean? That means I don't want to compete. I want to be a monopoly. I want to be this, right? So and any moral quibbles you may be feeling now about, competition is good now all of a sudden in business land, you need to interrogate that and wonder, well, why all of a sudden now do I want to copy what everybody else is doing, being a competitive environment, blah, 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 when on this other end? Or you could just ask yourself the selfish question, if you are the business Dr. Thunder, does Dr. Thunder Enterprises want to be a monopoly, or does he want to be in the restaurant business competing with everybody else? Like, you just want to be one of a billion, or do you want to be a monopoly? Okay, so it's a transposition of this kind of thing into the business world. I don't know if you have any comments about that, Dr. Thunder, or if you disagree with me as to the fact that he is saying the same thing, right? He just transitioned into monopoly.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I agree. So the monopoly thing is interesting. And yes, I would rather be a monopoly. The challenge with being the monopoly is you have to develop a market that doesn't exist.
That is the 0 to 1. That is the start striking out. That is the path. That is the how do I copy? How do I copy these iconoclasts, right? Because they did it, right? They started whatever the hell it is you're trying to start, the Google or the Facebook or whatever, right?
Right.
And even if you're not going to do it at that level, the point is there are many levels of life. You know, there's just being able to walk and chew gum and cash and balance your paycheck. I mean, your checkbook and all that kind of stuff. And these might require you to, you know, think of some innovative ways of, you know, killing the inner bitch in you, or whatever it may be, right? That, in other words, this type of striving of saying, how do I actually do something iconoclastic and that it could create a monopoly? It's not a bad exercise. Not that we're saying everyone is going to all of a sudden, of course, everyone is not going to create a monopoly, right? Or would you disagree with that? That this type of thinking is good exercise regardless of the level that you can take it to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because it's calling into question your sort of preconceived notions about something. You know, I think the more you can, you know, it's good to reevaluate what your core beliefs are on things frequently, I think, because it renews them. It either strengthens them or does away with values that, you know, didn't make sense. You know, maybe they made sense at one point, but no longer are they valid.
Yeah, there are many people who actually went into a particular career path as a result of sibling rivalry of the sort which we described earlier. Maybe they're not copying their sibling, but maybe their sibling once made a remark when they were 6 years old that you can never go be a doctor or something like that. And then they spent countless amounts of time, energy, and whatever being a doctor. It's every once in a while, if they did it, in other words, if they frequently interrogated the reason why they were doing this, maybe they would have gone a different place, right? Anyways, let's continue.
There's a movie.
You want to?
There's a movie. It's one of the few Tyler Perry movies where he doesn't put a dress on, and it's a good movie. And all of the movies that he's done where he doesn't put a dress on are really good movies, and he's a good actor. And it's puzzling. It's puzzling why he still feels this compulsion to continue to put the dress on. I mean, it's obviously that it's like there's something wrong with him. You know, it's very much a strange sort of thing. But the movie is called Mr. Deeds. And I don't know if you saw this movie, but who's the she was in one of the Bond movies. She's been in other Tyler Perry movies. It's what's her name? Slender black woman, has a bit of an accent.
You think Grace Jones has been in one of?
No, no, not Grace Jones. She's more like a little, maybe a little bit lighter than me.
Okay. I would.
You know what? I'm gonna find it right.
Yeah,
now.
it's not Halle Berry or any of those.
So Mr. Deeds, cast. Okay, there we go. Oh no, it's not Mr. Deeds. It's Mr. Oh my goodness, what's the name of that movie? You know what? Go on. I'll find it and get to it.
Aim to build a company that is one of a kind, and that it's so far differentiated from the competition that it's not.
Okay, it's Good Deeds. The name of the movie is Good Deeds, and the main actress is, what is it? Tandy Newton. And Gabrielle Union is in the movie. It's good, you know, it's a great, you know, and it's a well produced, it's a good movie. But what it is that Tyler Perry is the president of this company that he inherited from his parents. Okay, from his dad. And he's been doing this for all this time because it was expected that he would be the person to do it, because his younger brother is, he's kind of a hothead. He's not really ready for the limelight, as it were. And he's dating Gabrielle Union. They're engaged or whatever, but it's more of like obligatory that they're together. It's like it's the right thing to do, but it's not really what he wants to do. So anyhow, he meets Tandy Newton, who is she is working as a janitor at his building where his office is, and his company is a huge company, lots of money, that owns the whole building. She's one of the, and so what ends up happening, she's got a kid. She's a single mom. Her kid, what's the name? The Child Protective Services trying to get, take her kid away because she doesn't have any place to live. She's living in her car, blah, blah, blah. So good deeds, right? So he sets her up. He gives her one of the company's apartments or something like this, so she can stay there until everything's good. Long and short of it is he ends up dumping Gabrielle and getting with the janitor. So and it's totally frivolous. Like who would do this? This is like totally ridiculous. But it's Hollywood, whatever. But but the point is that what causes him to totally switch is that he starts to recognize that he has been putting something on all of this time that he didn't really want. He didn't want that. He had other desires. He wanted to do some, he wanted to travel and help some folks in Africa or something. He wanted to do some humanitarian work. He wanted to do that kind of stuff, but he didn't do that because they needed him to be the pres for the company. So anyhow, I just, yeah. So anyhow, there it is.
Indeed, it makes sense.
Not even competing. And I think this is the conventional wisdom is always that capitalism and competition are somehow synonyms. I believe they're antonyms. A capitalist is someone who's in the business of accumulating capital. A world of perfect competition is a world where all the profits are competed away. If you want to compete like...
Just a quick, simple model here. Basically, a world of perfect competition is a world where all the capital is competed away. All the profits is competed away. Capital, how you accumulate capital is, by accumulating profits, right? The excess, right? That's kind of typically how it should work. Even if you're borrowing against tomorrow's excess, right? That kind of a thing. And in perfect competition, all the excess get competed away. What does that mean? That means that if you make this widget and you're charging $10 for it at Dr. Thunder Corporation, okay? And it's a new kind of thing. The moment I get into competition with you, Dr. Thunder, okay, I'm going to try to find a way to sell it for $9 or to kind of undermine your cost structure in a certain way in the supply chain, whatever, to find some kind of chink in your armor. And that'll reduce your profits, okay, in order to compete with me. And you can imagine that wherever there is excess profit, the game of competition flattens that curve. That is the job of the competition stuff, right? So just to kind of put some flesh to the model, which you just said, which is that basically capitalism is about accumulating capital, but perfect competition obviously takes all the capital away, such and such.
Competition is a world where all the profits are competed away. If you want to compete like crazy, then you should just open a restaurant in Chicago.
Let me say something real quick.
And I think the...
Okay, so yes, so all of the profits are what did he say? How did he put that?
Competed away.
Competed away. Now, this is interesting because of the so I think he's right, and because he's right, the government has actually put in sort of artificial limits to how low you can sell certain items for.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, in instrument sales, musical instrument sales, yes, there is the manufacturer's suggested retail price, but there's also another number called the MSP. I think it's the must sell price, or I can't remember but what it amounts to is you cannot sell it for lower than that price. It's illegal to sell it lower than that price. So the manufacturer creates it, sells it to you, and then as the retailer, you're not allowed to sell it below a certain price. It's actually against the law to sell it below that price.
And this stops the bigger people whom can afford to suppress prices in certain places in order to starve out a new up and coming Dr. Thunder trumpets from getting the foothold in any particular part of the market where they spot you, right? So they put that limit on there so that they can. Yep.
And another thing that does this is minimum wage. It also has a similar impact, right? It's because, see, if you're just getting started, you're selling stuff out of your garage and you need somebody to help you, yeah, there's a way to pay people
under the table, if you will.
Well, either under the table or you can pay them like what is it?
Gotcha.
How you would pay somebody that's freelance. I mean, a contracted, contracted worker, right? So you can pay them like that, but you get to a certain point, you can't really do that anymore. And so then the problem becomes there's a minimum wage now. So now you can't just negotiate with the person and say, hey, check it out. I'm a little guy right now. As I grow, you grow. You can't really do that. You have to, you got to be like, well, the minimum wage says this, and then plus I got to pay these bennies, and I got to do X, Y, and Z, and I got to pay into some kind of workers, workers comp or whatever, and I got to do all this stuff now, and so now, I can't afford to do it. I can't afford to hire you, so I either do it myself or find some illegal method, or be a fan of stuff like illegal immigration, stuff like that. Get some cats that'll work for cheap with no questions and all like that. So,
yeah. So you see, exactly. So you see ways of protecting a particular locale, in this case, from competition by saying, hey, minimum wage is the example that you gave, but immigration is protecting a locale by saying, hey, you can't bring this cheap labor from elsewhere. Right? Because I'm competing with you. I look around, I'm like, how can I make this thing cheaper? I'm like, I go find somebody that I can just pay whatever if I can get into an agreement with them. But if the government says, no, you cannot pay whatever, you got to pay this, okay, that is obviously a way of protecting against perfect competition. So an understanding that perfect competition has its downsides and
limitations.
Yes.
The great companies like Google, sort of the paradigm example I use, has had no serious competition in search since 2002, when it definitively distanced itself from Yahoo and Microsoft. And as a result, it's been generating enormous cash flows for the last 12 years. I sort of get at this. I think there are sort of two different reasons this monopoly and competition idea is not understood. One is somewhat intellectual, because the people who have monopolies don't talk about it. They pretend not to have monopolies for reasons that I will leave to your imagination. And the people who don't have monopolies pretend to have something unique about their business because.
And by the way, let me make a connection here as we go on about this. Not only is this monopoly thing the inverse or the same kind of the same idea, but transposed into business, of saying that you want to be unique, you want to be authentic, you don't want to copy the Joneses, you don't want to be in this stiff competition to become this gray, undifferentiated masses of people that are just going through, they go through high school and then they become either a businessman, a doctor, whatever, and they go into the law firm and they all fight to become the partner or a made partner and all that kind of stuff, right? People don't like that inherently, and then in the business world is to say, well, you want to be a monopoly. But then what are you saying right now about the fact that when you're a monopoly, you actually have a lot of capital, right, which we just talked about, because it's not getting competed away by competition? Then you can continue to innovate, right? Because if you're just spending all the time worried about how they're shaving $5 away from you here and saving $5 there, you're not going to have money to keep it simple, research and development, right? or money to try new things, to gamble, to invest in the future, right? Just regular capital. That's what you need not think too deep about it. So not only does you want to be a monopoly because you crave authenticity, but being a monopoly also is what enables you to continue to innovate and continue to be, if you will, a monopoly and authentic.
Otherwise, nobody would invest or give them any money. And so, and the way you do this is if you have a monopoly like Google, you will pretend that you are in a much, much larger market. So you will never, as Google, talk about the search business and say, we have a 66% share of the search market, and we're much more dominant than Microsoft ever was with the operating system market in the 1990s. You will instead say that we are a technology company, and technology is this vast space where we're competing with Apple on iPhones, and we're competing with Facebook on social, and we're going to build a self-driving cars, and we're competing with all the car companies in Detroit, and there's just competition everywhere. And so it sort of gets obscured by making the market appear to be bigger than it really is. And then conversely, if you were to listen to my talk today and run out of here and decide you had to start a restaurant immediately, and you talk to various investors and they'd say, well, I don't want to invest in a restaurant because I know they all go out of business, I will lose all my money. You will tell them some idiosyncratic story where this is a one-of-a-kind restaurant. It's completely unique and very different from all the others. It is the only British Nepalese fusion cuisine within in downtown Chicago. And so there's sort of this fictional story that gets told the other way. And so I think that because of these distortions that people tell about their businesses, I think this monopoly question ends up being very, very underappreciated and we sort of underweighted as a variable intellectually. But I think there's also sort of
it's interesting. Yeah, it's just kind of highlighting the point that, that because you saw that protection against perfect competition, and then that he's just basically kind of saying the pros and cons of competition versus monopoly are highly obscured because people are constantly lying about whether or not they are indeed in perfect competition, like that the restaurant person telling you, oh no, it's completely unique, okay? Or Google saying, oh no, we're not a monopoly. So everyone is lying. The people who are in perfect competition are lying that, oh, we have something unique. The people who have cornered the market and are sucking the living daylight out of it and making billions are like, oh no, we're not a monopoly. So everyone is... Anyways, it's kind of funny. So the landscape is kind of not very clear there as to unless you go look at it, right? As we are looking around, it will not be clear to you what exactly the pros and cons of each are.
Second reason that this is not understood that well. I sort of, the opening line of Anna Karenina is that all happy families are alike, all unhappy families are unhappy in their own special way. And I think the opposite is true of business. I think all happy companies are different because they figured out some way to radically differentiate themselves and escape from competition. All unhappy companies are alike because they fail to escape the essential sameness that is competition. The chapter in my book entitled "All Happy Companies Are Different" got excerpted by the Wall Street Journal, and they retitled it a little bit more provocatively with the title "Competition is for Losers." And the reason this is such a provocative title is because we always think that the losers are the people who can't compete effectively enough. The losers are the people who are slow on the swim team in high school. The losers are the people whose grades or test scores aren't quite good enough to get into the right universities or something like that. And so the idea that somehow competition itself is something that we are perversely attracted to is very counterintuitive. And yet I want to suggest that there is always this incredible pull that competition has on us. The autobiographical anecdote in my book when I was a teenager in my 20s, and the advice I'd give my younger self was incredibly driven by these sort of competitive dynamics. My 8th grade junior high school yearbook, one of my friends said, I know you're going to make it into Stanford in 4 years. And sure enough, I got into Stanford 4 years later, then went to Stanford Law School, and then ended up at a big law firm on Wall Street. It was one of those places where from the outside, everybody was trying to get in. On the inside, everybody was trying to get out. When I left after 7 months and 3 days, one of the people down the hall from me told me it was reassuring to see me leave. He had no idea it was possible to escape from Alcatraz. And of course, all you had to do was go out the front door. But it was psychologically hard.
It's kind of interesting in there what he mentioned about the fact that we keep, even though competition is out there killing us, either it's driving us into competing with the Joneses and doing things we don't necessarily want to do or whatever. We keep on, because it has a very powerful drive. We keep on as a motivating factor, right? We keep on just seeing it, therefore, blindly as this kind of essential good, right? Competition wakes me up in the middle of the night, so it must be good, right? But what he's saying now about him going to being on that track. Oh, you're going to get in Stanford and Stanford Law and a law firm in Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. Him just getting motivated by all that competition, but still it was all about the copying and all about the path that has been laid out for him. Like, yes, we are motivated to compete, but when we really ask ourselves, what the hell did I just do all that? We sometimes find, to go back to our point of, interrogating our, shall we say, desires, we sometimes find that, yeah, competition is very powerful because it's about copying people, but we need to be careful about it, right? In terms of, it's not just, oh, competition, great. So I don't know if you had any, you've been doing a lot of laughing. I don't know if there are anything you wanted to.
Yeah. So this is interesting because he's given a little, he's kind of shined a light on a reoccurring sort of thought that I've had, and it's not necessarily an original thought, but it is something that I have, that has kind of been sort of rummaging around in my head, and that is this idea of, the real competition is not you versus other people. It's you versus who you could be. It's it's you making progress each day towards an individual destiny, as it were. The thing that only you can do. And now, I would argue that it takes, and in his case, it took him to get where he is right now. It took him going to law school. It took him going to Stanford, going to law school, going to, work where he worked for 7 months and 3 days. It took all of that. That's part of his journey. And I'm not trying to say this sort of, cliche, don't despise your journey kind of a thing. It's not that. It's not that. It's more his journey actually developed in him. As you're doing everything that you're doing, you don't know what's useful information and what's not useful information.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to know that until it comes back to mind, until you're in the moment when that piece of information is actually critical, or because because of that, the way that information interacted with other stuff that you were doing at the time, or whatever conclusions you ended up making about certain things, or patterns that you discontinued because you had a certain experience, or because you struggled in a certain way, or whatever it is. So, if there was any question in his mind, was he going to be fulfilled doing that kind of job? Now he knows for sure. So, and that might be worth something itself. But it also probably propelled him into what it is that he's doing now. So
yeah. So, the fool, the simpleton, and the wise thing. Obviously, these are all characters that we embody at different points in our lives, or to different degrees, depending on the particular aspect of our lives.
Yes.
Some of us are fools for a long time, let's say, with regards to women or something, but even though we may be wise in other areas, and maybe simpletons in many others and such. So the idea that, okay, you have to learn and then gather data about going through this whole track system in order to gather actual data, which will be the simpleton type of stuff. I'm going to learn from my own mistakes, gather data. But it was wise for him to stop at 7 months and 3 days. Right? Much wiser than most, and actually quite courageous, authentic, and all that kind of stuff, to then pull away, look at the bigger picture, and then now be able to use this particular self-experience as a way of perhaps awakening other people to this type of crazy competition game which people get into as a result of copying other people, right?
Yeah, I do want to. This reminds me, him, stepping away, and you're talking about this sort of courage to do so. It's interesting because I was in a situation where, you know, I quit a full-time job with Benny's, you know, and everything. I put my 2 weeks notice in, and I had no idea what I was going to do to make that income back. I had no clue, but I just had to do it. You know, I just knew I wasn't in the right place. Now, if I had that to do again, I wouldn't have done it the way that I did it. I would have found the replacement first and then put my 2 weeks in. And that is, you know, and that's what I tell folks. That piece of wisdom that, you know, you want to have something before you're giving stuff up, because you don't know what can happen. And, you know, and there's of course the wisdom in, you know, saving your money and having, 3 months of income, you know, on hand, or 6 months, or whatever it is, just save so that if you don't have a job for 6 months, you're okay, or for a year, or whatever it is. You know, people have different sort of measurements for that. Most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, so that's not really, you know, that's not really the, you know, that's not going to probably be the, you know, that'll meet a minority of folks are actually able to do that. But for everybody else, you have to already have the job before you put your notice in at the other job, and that's what you got to do. You got to protect yourself and your family, especially if you're responsible for taking care of other people. It's one thing if, like, okay, well, I'm going to leave this job. Worst case scenario, I can sleep on the couch at my parents' house. Okay, that's one thing. But your whole family can't sleep at your parents' house on the couch. So I'm just saying.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about doing something new, going from 0 to 1, how to escape that competition. Okay, and competition is desiring what other people desire, wanting what they want, keeping up with the Joneses, following a particular track with regards to your education. They said go to school, they said get a degree, they said, you know, do this, do that, get a job. We understand, and people have this desire that they want to break free from that. Okay, not following the pack, keeping in one, you know, in at oneness, being at one with your unique self and all that. And then we're taking this into the monopoly side of things in terms of, well, that to be unique as a business is to be a monopoly, and this generates, if you will, enough capital for you to continue to research and to continue to grow and continue to do more 0 to 1 style of things. Okay, so go ahead and click the like button and also share that. Let me go ahead and continue to play this video here, because they're using this book 0 to 1, which is about startups, to look at this whole idea of breaking out from the loop of competition.
After 7 months and 3 days, one of the people down the hall from me told me it was reassuring to see me leave. He had no idea it was possible to escape from Alcatraz. And of course, all you had to do was go out the front door. But it was psychologically hard for people to do this, because their identity was so wrapped up in the competitions they had won, the people they had beaten along the way, that they could not even imagine doing anything different. And so I think this is why I think competition is always this very two-edged thing. When you compete ferociously, you will get better at that which you're competing on, but you will always narrow your focus to beating the people around you. And it often comes at this very high price of losing sight of what is more important or perhaps more valuable. And so I think there's this very strange phenomenon in Silicon Valley where a lot of the most talented startups, a lot of the great startups seem to be run by people who are suffering from a mild form of Asperger's. And I think we need to always turn this fact around and view this as an indictment of our whole society. Because what does it say about our society when anyone who does not suffer from Asperger's, who is socially well adapted, will be talked out of all of their original creative ideas before they're even fully formed, who will sense this is a little bit too weird, that's a little bit strange, that sounds a little bit
Right? Makes sense. And this goes in line with Dee's first comment about being a misfit. It's like, okay, being a misfit does kind of help. And hey, what do you know? All these people doing new things are all, what is the term? They're not neurotypical. They're a little off. They don't do what people tell them to do. They're weirdo libertarians or some kind of crap like that. You know, they're weird dudes. Okay. And that tells you something about he's using that as an indictment on contemporary or society, or at least this particular form of society. Now we all, as human nature, as a law of human nature, have to copy and kind of so on and so forth. But you could also foster an environment that is able to, shall we say, nurture people taking this unique path, breaking free, as the picture in the thumbnail shows, right? Because if the only people that can break free are autistic people, right? Then there's something wrong with the software that we're running in the society, right? If the main software just creates only sameness, and the only people that can break free are people who are off, like their network is not quite hooked up correctly to the software. Anyways, let him continue here.
Before they're even fully formed, who will sense this is a little bit too weird, that's a little bit strange, that sounds a little bit crazy, people are looking at me in a weird way. And I think this is something that we must all realize is sort of a deeply endemic problem. They've done these studies at Harvard Business School, which I think you often think of the business school student as a profile in anti-Asperger's. They're sort of very extroverted, often have no real convictions. And you have sort of a hothouse environment in which you put all these people for 2 years.
Don't play that one again. I know you liked that. I just heard that, Dr. Thunder. So let me play that one again for you. All right, Dr. Thunder. Give you a little. Okay, let's go.
Problem. They've done these studies at Harvard Business School, which I think you often think of the business school student as a profile in anti-Asperger's. They're sort of very extroverted, often have no real convictions. And you have sort of a hothouse environment in which you put all these people for 2 years. And at the end of the 2-year process, they've all sort of talked to each other and they've concluded they should all try to catch the last wave. And it's invariably a pretty bad idea. In 1989, they all wanted to work for Michael Milken, just a year or two before he went to jail. They were never interested in tech.
Again, you're gonna want to do you're gonna look at the last wave. You're gonna be like, oh, where did the money get made last time? And then you're gonna run there. It's like asking, where's the sheep going? Where's the herd going? And by definition, It's not going to be to anything new. It's not going to be to anything groundbreaking. It's not going to be to anything actually that may be relevant to the times. It's more like what you say about academia, for example. It's a kind of more of a repository of something that that was new yesterday, right? But anyways, this idea of extroverted, neurotypical, but very lacking in any kind of real conviction, authenticity, or whatever, is he's continuing to come for them here. He's one of those introverted libertarian types, if you have not gathered that by now. But let's see.
They all wanted to work for Michael Milken, just a year or two before he went to jail. They were never interested in tech or Silicon Valley, except for 99, 2000, when they timed the dot-com bubble implosion perfectly. And then sort of 2005 to 07, it was all housing and private equity and things like that. And it's easy in some ways to make fun of people in business school or people who are sort of conventionally tracked. But I think we should recognize that we're all very prone to this. Already in the time of Shakespeare, the word ape meant both primate and to imitate. And there is something very deep in human nature that is imitative. It has a lot of good things. It's how language gets learned by kids. It's how culture gets transmitted in our society. But it also can lead to sort of a lot of insane behavior. It can lead to the madness of crowds, to bubbles, to sort of mass delusions of one sort or another. And I think it can. And I think it's advertising. We always tell ourselves that we're not that prone to this. And I think that's something I'd encourage all of us to rethink. We always think of advertising as something that just afflicts other people, that never afflicts ourselves. I think this is very far from the case. And so the monopoly competition is not just this intellectual failure. It's also this thing where you have a tiny door where everyone's trying to rush through, and there may be around the corner a vast and a secret gate that no one's taking. And you should always find the secret path and go ahead and take that.
Yeah. So here it's kind of emphasizing the whole, we are all prone to it. It's all us. It's all us. Don't think it's just the other people. Yes, and he kind of came for the business school types, but it is not just a trivial coming for them, because these are, after all, some of the best and the brightest, shall we say, going to Harvard Business School, Harvard Law School, getting MBAs and all that kind of stuff. But they too are just or even they, especially, he is saying that them especially are just filled with no particular conviction. And the only people who seem to have conviction are non-neurotypical. They're off the grid already. So what is this? Like, what does it say about us? You're Dr. K. I hope you have something to add here at this juncture. You asked to drop the link, or are you just being is this some kind of attention-seeking competition? We're up on here, so you felt like you had to come up to.
He's one of the ones with a lack of conviction.
Yeah, he's trying to keep up with the Joneses. You're like, oh, now come up, drop the link.
Wow, it's called FOMO, guys. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out.
There you go. That's another. Yeah, but I think the way he's kind of he's putting it all together, like, okay, FOMO, mob mentality, all these things, right? It's all about that red ball still that kid wants that you don't want, and all these other things. Where you see all.
I mean, this is the advent of the whole thing that we are suffering from in postmodernism, feminism. If you notice, when you were young kids, right? I don't know if it's true for you guys, but I could kind of observe it across different types of relationships in different relationship groups. There was my sister, right? She wanted to be following me everywhere. She wanted to play with my friends. She wanted to be around me. She didn't want to be around some dusty woman. So yeah, this whole thing there, like, everyone wants to be part of.
Penis envy. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, you could go there, right? Fair enough, right? But we don't want to be. We don't want to start going into Carl Jungian and the white psychologists. But the point is, there is an element whereby people mimic. Let's take it to miminism, right? Miminic theory, right? Rene Girard. People want what they don't have, because it also creates an element of fear, chaos, and turbulence. If someone else who they regard as someone who other people regard, and also they're somewhat similarly matched, if they don't have it. For example, Kenya doesn't care if America is making trillions of dollars. What's it? 2.3 trillion. I don't really know what the economy of America is, right? But it's several $1 trillion, right?
Yeah, hold on a second there. I like that what the way you talked about it. I'm a big fan of subjective consciousness, so I'm like, okay, that you said when someone has something that I don't have, okay, so that child in that red ball, like, what is the nature of the experience of the child that starts desiring the red ball after the other child has it? And I think that what you talk about, the perturbation, is actually quite correct. It's like there's a certain amount of fear that kid has it. And that kid, as you mentioned, it has to be something that you regard. It can't just be some kind of piece of trash, right? It's a kid that you regard. It's almost like something that you're on par with you. Like, it has personhood. You see that other people regard it too. And then it has something that you don't have. And all of a sudden, there's this void that opens up all of a sudden in your heart. Like, which is kind of interesting. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, just to go back and sly on both you and Dr. Thunder for leaving me out. It's okay. No hard feelings.
We
but
didn't
there
know
was
if you would be able to keep up. But anyways, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. That's fine. That's even less offensive than the fact that I was left out. But it's fine. It's fine. I'll come up one day. Okay. Anyways, so there was this lady. Now, she's a woman, and from Germany. I helped her start her account on YouTube. I was completely kind to her, but guess what? Because she could see that intellectualism-wise, I was her peer, and so I was getting traction. Obviously, that miminic theory kicked in, and then she became an adversary, right? So that element sticks out there, and I think it's when people are evenly matched. That's when people, And now going back to this video over here with Peter Thiel, 0 to 1, etc. Is this: first of all, you have to be willing to break free from the non-zero movement potential. What I'm trying to say here in simple terms is this, right? You can't compare yourself to Dusties. You do have to, at some point, discover that you're a god, and then you have to move forward. Even the Bible, Psalms 92, verse 86, or is it 86, verse 92? Doesn't matter. One of the other states that you are a god. However, you shall die as a mere man because you do not know it. So at some point, you have to now just regard it, understand who and what you are, and then you have to now start moving forward, propel yourself towards godhood. And that's what
you gotta do it yourself. Not everyone is gonna get the good grace of God coming to them like Abraham and telling them to get their dusty ass out of their father's tent at 75 years old, right? At some point, you need to realize it yourself. If you see, I mean, Abraham was lucky, right? That he got kicked out.
That's great.
Forced to greatness, huh?
But let's continue if unless anyone else had any other kind of commentary. But I think Mr. Theo here is getting to the whole. I think. Okay, anyways, let him get there, because I think the part of this is, okay, there is a open portal to all the secrets, right? And what are the secrets? The secrets are the stuff that the MBAs are not paying attention to. The secrets are the stuff outside of the news, outside of the magazines, outside of marketing, outside of the copying of the Joneses and all that kind of stuff. Is this place? It's not necessarily quote unquote hidden, but
Can
it's
I
so
make
hard
a
to find
statement
because of the what? Go ahead.
Can I make a statement before we play the video?
Yeah.
The MBAs, right, or the Harvard graduates, these are high IQ. Sometimes, not always, also open people, meaning they have intuition. But most of the time, this is just high IQ people, and there's nothing wrong with high IQ people. They make great middle to high level managers, but they do not make for the best entrepreneurs or paradigm shifting individuals. I'm not saying that they don't necessarily, but I'm just saying that there's no real relationship between them being there versus the paradigm shifts. So what I'm trying to say here is that these people are great employees, and some of them are good employers. But if you notice, most of the good employers did actually leave these schools before they finished, right? So there's an element of chaos, willingness to actually go and rescue your father from the belly of the whale.
Yeah. So Dr. Thunder, we were mentioning earlier about his 7 months and 3 days, I believe. And he kind of left quickly there, but some people even left, like Steve Jobs left before they even finished the freaking Stanford or whatever, or wherever the hell he went to, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is relevant about being able to go out there and contend with the chaos, go out there, leave your father's tent, and all that stuff that we said. But let us see where the secrets lay.
Gate that no one's taking, and you should always find the secret path and go ahead and take that. Two other quick ideas on things that I believe to be true that most people don't agree with me on. I think there are many answers to this question: what is true that people don't agree with me on? And most of us actually don't think there are that many answers left. We think that all these answers have been discovered, and I sort of give a trichotomy in my book of conventions, which are truths everybody already knows. The other end, there are mysteries, which are truths that we can't that nobody in this world can figure out. And then there are things that are in between that are hard. It takes a lot of work, but if you apply yourself, you could figure those out. And I call those secrets. And I think there are many secrets left. Now, there are certain areas where it's not that promising to look. So, if you were growing up in the 17th or 18th century, there were some empty spaces on the map, and you could become an explorer and discover some more secrets about geography. Or in the 19th century, there were still some empty spaces left on the periodic table of elements, and you could go into chemistry and discover some things in basic chemistry. And so I think geography, basic chemistry, these are areas that have been fully explored. These are areas where you're not going to find any secrets. These are not promising areas where you will discover a new truth that no one else knows, and that can become the basis for a great insight or a great business.
I really, really agree with what he said. I mean, this reminds me of my first year of my chemistry degree. I self-discovered all the things that the lecturer was talking about, right? It's like I was just like, this is basic intuition. So it looks like we're just in a state of saturation, whereby if you want to do anything meaningful, you have to sacrifice something. So for example, when it comes to the Americans, he was a pioneer. He was sacrificing safety, reliability, stability, and economic viability, and also having a woman, right? To go to America where there's no women, whatever, purportedly, maybe you can go find a native woman. But the point is, you're going to a new environment. So I think at this point, if you really do want to discover something new, do something different, there is an element of you risking things, because there is no longer a formula. Before, you're sort of like, you walk across the chaos, you go towards the uncontended world, and then you can find something. You'll find anything, and if you're intelligent enough, you can make sense of it. But right now, it's difficult because everybody's who's doing anything already has that minimum intelligence and or luck aspect, right? So now you're competing with things which, honestly, at the end of the day, is people like Amazon creator. You go in your dusty little garage, you spend 6 years building something which you're not even sure is going to pull through, but you're consistent, and then also you have the vision to see the usefulness towards human, and also you have the tenacity not to listen to dusties.
But I think most areas are not like this. And I think that there are many directions we can go in where the frontier is still surprisingly close. There certainly has been an enormous amount of ideas and businesses that have been discovered in this IT space for the last 40 years. And there's no reason to think that's going to stop. Around computers, internet, mobile internet, software, there are many things people find. The ideas are often, they always seem shockingly simple in retrospect. They're pretty hard ex ante. When we came up at PayPal with combining email with money, that was a secret. It was not an easy thing to figure out. No one else in the world had figured it out, but it was far from impossible to do. And once we came up with the idea, we thought, wow, it's amazing no one's thought of this yet. We have to really.
Yeah. So there are many ideas like that. You were talking about the fact that there's this part of a landscape that is used up, blah blah blah. But he just talked about this combining. In the world now of a blockchain, there are many ideas, right? The blockchain is just kind of like the new internet, very new. We don't have the applications for it yet, right? But that'll be kind of if you're within digital space. But he just to kind of add context to the kind of when he was talking about physical space there, when he was talking about the geography and then chemistry. So mechanical things, geography things, chemistry things, we're kind of good with. There's a lot of biochemistry is where there's a lot of stuff that we can still.
Oh man, look,
make
if you
happen.
can go, sometimes I wish I didn't do dusty chemistry than physics. I literally went from the most mundane sciences. Like I could have focused and I just stayed with the I should just stay with medical science when the original degree that I did, because that's where the new stuff is. I could have literally, anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is that's where the new discoveries is, because we don't have saturation. But
You could
when
always
it comes,
go back, man.
yeah, go ahead.
You can always go back.
Okay, that's a good point. I have enough basics to be able to. Yeah, that's actually a really
Yeah, and I
good
was
point.
about to say too that Richard
Mhm.
Feynman, Francis Crick, and so on, other people in physics made a lot of contributions to the
Yeah.
advancement of molecular biology, right? So it's not
And
like
actually, I noticed it's something I have a friend. She's from Gambia or Senegambia, and she got a first class in everything. But actually, to be honest, I helped her study right all that time. Anyway, the point is here, right? Having that extra discipline knowledge allows you to see what the other people within that discipline don't see. So yeah, 100%. If I went back to medical science, I would see things that they can't see because I'm looking at it from multiple perspectives. And I also have like imagine this, having a high in-depth knowledge, but from a different perspective. That gives you an edge that the other people just don't have. But yeah, like I said, cryptocurrency, cryptology. There's just so much stuff to work here. I mean, there's like I mentioned earlier, right now, right in Africa, even the world. Forget Africa; it's irrelevant whether it's Africa. When it comes to voting, you want a voting system that is
and I can just picture you
exclusive.
going on and on and on forever, right? So this is
Right.
Dr. Thunder. This is what I say about Dr. K, right? Where it's like, okay, I was using in one of our examples, Dr. Thunder, if you remember, I said the importance of knowing the difference between different types of people. I was like, if I tell Dr. K, go do something, okay, I know what the kind of results to expect, which would be a shotgun spreading out, going on and on forever. He's going to talk about Africa and payment. Next thing, going to be in taxis and ships and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. It's just going to go on forever. And I say, if I tell Dr. Thunder to do something, I know it's going to more narrow in focus, whatever. But anyways, so we're going to
Streamlined,
stop
yeah.
your expansion, Dr. K, and we're going to get back
You don't want the Kazoran Empire to win. Fair
to
enough.
the
fair
point
enough.
here.
really execute fast before anyone catches up. And so I think there are many things, there are many secrets like this that are left to be discovered, and we see this with all the new businesses that emerge in these areas. I actually think that we should try to find some in a number of other areas. So I think that everything from biotech to space technologies, all sorts of other areas of technology, I think have been somewhat underexplored in recent decades, and that it would be good if the cone of progress were not just this narrow cone around.
Okay, well, the challenge to Dr. Thunder and Dr. K here. Okay, so he has kind of started with this basic idea of this copying stuff, copying competition, and exposed us and say, oh my God, it is very antithetical to the things that we say we want with regards to being authentic and so on and so forth. And also we see all the good things that come from authenticity, path less travel, 0 to 1 technology type of thinking. Okay, an indictment on the society that, only the non-neurotypical people are making these types of, shall we say, leaps. Then he started talking about the landscape of technology. Okay, again, this book is about technology companies, startups, and saying, hey, it is the case that there's some low-hanging fruit that has already been plucked, geography, okay, and so on, chemistry, whatever it may be. However, in everyday life of regular people, okay, that might not be wanting to make
Also, I kind of disagree with him, but go ahead.
They may not be wanting to make the next theoretical physics breakthrough.
Okay,
There are
never mind.
things in regular life where people are rigidly, shall we say, beholden by certain dogmatic views on what
Yeah.
can or should be done with regards
They
to
don't
their
deserve to
economic
live.
life, their degrees of
Those
freedom and such.
people don't deserve to live, right? If you're gonna have these dusties out here, because I was
Okay,
actually
so
on
the point
Yeah.
is though,
they don't deserve to live, right? These people are useless. That's the point, right? Like I was on what's this Edward Anderson's show with him yesterday, right? And what I noticed is right, if anyone is going to go against basics of passport, getting a passport, being a cosmopolitan, what are you against? Are you simply what's going on in their heads, right? So the elements, Ike, that you cannot be against, right? You know what I mean? It just makes you a
oh yeah,
dusty, and I'm
for
a
sure,
dusty.
for sure. Yeah, I
Right.
was talking about the things hidden in plain sight that you might help other people elucidate. Like, oh, did you know you could do this? Right. In other words, like there's certain things that are in front of people's eyes that they don't see, and these may be things that you maybe have done in your life. Like I'm sure there's certain things that are in your particular autobiography, Dr. Thunder, that are some things that may be unique, some paths that you took. Like, oh, did you know you didn't have to do this, didn't have to do that?
No, but we can't use
Or
Dr.
stuff like
Thunder.
that.
He was always high IQ from the beginning, right? He gave that nice story whereby he had to go through college and this and
Yeah,
community.
he's
The
out here
reality
flexing
is
on the
this,
fact that
this
he didn't
nigga
have to
was
do
always
anything. So
high
I guess
IQ.
Dr. Thunder is a bad
That's the
example.
thing, right? He was always high IQ. He made that story just to relate with the common man. And we know why he did it, right? But
Okay, it is interesting. So here, one thing I would talk about is on the courage frontier. Okay, on the courage frontier is a place where we can at least have some grace in the sense that we have some people whom are not particularly dusty or whatever, but you might give them some. We all can use some courage from time to time, right? So that is one where I always preach about my typical, the rule. You have to understand and have very clear in your head what is moral, what is ethical, and what is legal. Okay. And one of the sliding scale on these is that one of them is very fluid, which is the law end of things. Okay, change from place to place, time to time, blah blah blah. And the other one is more fixed. That's kind of the thing. And while you may be with law, when I say law, I'm talking about public policy and what may be considered to be just regular, what it is okay for you to do. Like, for example, certain anti-competition laws that certain employers have with you, like conflict of interest laws. Take, for example, that is one I always kind of like say I call BS on all the time. I'm like, I'm not necessarily beholden to this nonsense you guys are saying about what I can and cannot do. Number one, because no one actually follows it. Okay, what I'm saying is, in fact, no one actually follows it, but therefore, be more more consciously don't follow it. Right? Find ways. I meet people all the time. They say, okay, I'm this particular person. I'm working for this particular company in this software thing. I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I have this idea for this app thing. I'm like, okay, well, once you start doing it, it's like, oh, I can't do it. I can't recruit people. I can't put it on LinkedIn because there's this conflict of interest. So it's like, no, you need to start that. You need to, whatever it is, the steps that you need to take for you to be equivalent to your employer in government status. What does that mean by that? In terms of, let's say, corporate personhood. Your employer has an LLC and X, Y, and Z licenses. How do I mimic that at my scale? Right? I don't have to become
those rules. Look. Those rules are to limit competition. Okay, that's what those rules are in place for. Sure. And because whoever you work for, they didn't follow those rules. That's probably why they exist.
True.
That's why that company probably exists. It's because they didn't follow those rules. I at one point in time, my employer, the institution I worked for was getting very, testy and, all up in my Kool-Aid about supposed, conflict of interest, this, that, and everything else. My policy always is, it's better to, it's easier to get forgiveness than to get permission. So if it's not clearly stipulated that I am not to do X, Y, and Z for X, Y, for ABC reasons, then I'm going to go out and do it. And then somebody can tell me later, but they're going to have to do a really good job of convincing me that I'm not supposed to be doing it. you know, you know, and especially in a time period now where there's so much experimental stuff, so much stuff that didn't exist before. How is it possible for them to have rules about all of the possible stuff that you can get involved with now that you couldn't before? And you know, one of these, conflicts, you know, in the past was stuff like, well, if you're in a full-time position, then you shouldn't have another full-time position. That was one of these conflicts that people would frequently talk about. And it's like, dude,
it's one of these
Go
big
ahead.
things that really kind of exists right now, still in the popular zeitgeist, which is the idea somehow that your freaking employer, okay, has any kind of thing to tell you about anything you do with your time and personhood. Like,
Exactly.
it's like, here's a job. Am I doing it or not? Okay. What do
But
you
I
mean?
think
Oh,
I
I
get
can't
them,
also
Mike.
be doing like.
But I get it. The
You
thing
know?
is, I'll be the white man's advocate here for a second. I know why they're saying it. They're saying it because is exactly why my previous job, I left them. They're afraid that actually you're going to do your other job well, and that there's now chaos implemented, whereby you can choose the better of the two. That's really what's going on there, Ike. Right? We know this, right? Prometheus, Hilti.
No, I know.
Right. That
the
element is
reason-
what they're really. That's the true element. The other superficial
No.
element.
I mean, this
No,
reason
it's
is
not real.
obvious. This
Right,
reason
right,
is
true.
obvious, right? That they want to control you. Obviously, what I'm talking
True.
about, the power that it has in the zeitgeist, is that the sheep just kind of
the
still
sheep.
don't.
The sheep are the
I
sheep.
think that they're waking more now because of the internet,
Right,
remote
right.
work, certain things about the technology. It's kind of breaking
True.
up this kind of idea a little bit. But
True.
it's what I'm saying is the participation of the sheep is greatly required for this to continue. Okay, it's not like they have guns to people's heads telling, oh, you can't do this, right? You can't work, you can't do that, you can't be productive in this other way, you can't
No,
have
but
this
you
multiple
gotta
streams and
know,
such.
like, for most people, even in highly established economies, people are scared to lose their jobs. That's a funny thing. People aren't
Yeah,
willing
and
to
this is-
and or able to just recreate themselves and figure things out. Like for example, I remember when I was doing my last degree, I could have done things in a certain way to keep the white man happy. I didn't, right? For various different reasons. Because I knew I was going to land on my feet. But most people, they kind of fear drives most people's decisions and or choices in life, and
This
it's
is what I mean.
incredible.
Okay, bitch ass niggas like Dave Ramsey, for example, that say the kind of conventional bitch ass shit like you're stealing their time. The fuck you. Whose time? Who the fuck? Oh my God. Can you imagine that kind of a statement? And what I mean is,
No.
it's not him. I'm talking about this is just kind of, it passes. It's okay for someone to say something like this and the audience receives it and they say, yes, I shouldn't be stealing their time, you know?
Yeah, they used to have a term. They used to have this term. You don't hear it very much now. Moonlighting.
Yeah, moonlighting.
You know, and so moonlighting was you cheating on your job.
Yeah.
With another job, right? Moonlighting. And it's super silly stuff, and especially with the technology that we have at our disposal now. Right.
Yeah.
So theoretically, especially for somebody like myself, you know, who I work in a flexible kind of job situation, I kind of set my schedule and I decide which responsibilities I'm going to take on, and I assign the others to other folks that are well suited for them. So explain to me exactly why I can't, I don't know, teach a class at some international university or something through a Zoom session. So why can't I do that? Why
True.
now exactly why? What is the ruling on this? Now how is that taking away from anything that I'm, you know what I'm saying? So when cats come up with goofy stuff like that, it is like I said, the moonlighting thing, people still think, and so you're talking about the zeitgeist, people think that moonlighting is against the rules. They think that if you have a full-time job, if you have another full-time job, if it's considered a full-time job, then that's wrong. I think most people recognize that you could have a full-time job and then you could also, like on the weekends, like bust some tables or something or that kind of thing, or say you're a musician, you're working for an insurance company, because you have a family and you need the insurance and benefits, but you're also gigging, you're like a contracted musician, you
Yeah.
play with it, so but I think people understand that is a thing, and then there's no issue with that. But as soon as you start, but how much time do you have involved doing this? Look, man,
The
when I
fact that they
was
say full time, that full time thing, that it's almost like it does
yeah,
carry a lot of weight. What would they mean by that?
yeah,
Or is it
I'll
full
tell you,
time? They own you?
I'll tell you, there was a time that my um the institution I work at, one of my supervisors or something was giving me like heck about what time of day I was I was on campus, and how many hours I was spending on campus, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, that's actually backwards. That's not, it's never was ever supposed to be that. It was never ever supposed to be that. If it was supposed to be that, I could work somewhere else and make a whole lot more money if I'm going to be sitting, if I'm like punching the clock, this kind of thing. That's not why I did this, so you got to watch out for folks. Sometimes either uh their own sense of ethics, which is not, or their own sense of morality, or whatever it is not yours. It's not what you think it is, and they can hold themselves to that standard if they want to, but they're not going to hold me to that standard unless I see something that I signed with like a notary and a witness, that suggested that I was in agreement that I wasn't going to do X, Y, and Z if I took this job. Unless I see that, I'm going to just keep doing whatever I need to do. It's, yeah, but people are, they're in their own prison. Most of all of this stuff, none of this stuff is like stated stuff. It's, nobody is standing at the door saying, no, you can't do this. People are imposing this stuff on themselves.
Yeah, like some people often wonder, for example, and I'm going to talk about very simple things now, and this is where I wanted to kind of bring the conversation, and we're already at that time where we landed the plane. We couldn't even get through a 10-minute video where Peter Thiel was simply just just laying out some simple ideas. But these are the kinds of simple things that I wanted to kind of bring to the fore here. As to you don't have. We're not saying, hey, go make the next molecular biology breakthrough necessarily, unless that's your particular lane. But there's so many ways in which you're just copying people with regards to the roadblocks that they've put with regards to these normative structures, right? These ethics rules and etiquette rules and things that you're supposed to do, and full-time people own your time, you conflict of interest, blah blah blah. And it's like, no, the idea is you should, everyone who is making real advancement, multiple streams of income is multiple jobs. Being an entrepreneur is having so much productive power and organizational power that you can, in other words, it's almost like these people, these companies, okay, are telling you that there is no way that you, another human being, can have enough organizational power to do what they do. So they are controlling millions, even billions of dollars, and multiple people all over. But you cannot. Like, who told you I can't do your job and three other jobs with my organization? You don't know what my organization is. I have people, I have things. I can organize this shit. I can. That's all. I'll just say the last point that I started with, which is match your organization and corporate personhood. They have something called some kind of a LLC incorporated, whatever, and they have a set of licenses or whatever that enables them to start that particular operation or do that thing. You want to make yourself as close to that, approximate that in your own self. Myself, for example, means I get all the licenses in all the states that I'm practicing in, professional engineer licenses, the insurance required for them. I have Perimeter Engineering Incorporated, all that kind of stuff, right? So that I can operate as this independent person wherever. But anyways, go ahead, Dr.
Yeah. So, what was I gonna say? Now I forget.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Oh goodness, what was that? Okay, it's starting to come back to me. Okay, so this is something that I face frequently, and that is, so as a musician, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, and I'm multi-stylist, right? And then I'm wearing different hats. I'm a musical director, I'm a sideman, I'm a band leader, I'm an academic, and so I'm wearing all these different hats. And people don't like, in general, people don't like it when you wear a lot of hats. They don't like that, because most people wear one hat. And so what that means is that they have to get all of the necessary funds to pay for their lifestyle from that one hat. Okay? I don't have to do that. And that's not what I do. So I'm able to work more, a lot more, than someone that only had like one skill, that could only just do this one thing, right? And I'm a composer and arranger and all this kind of, matter of fact, somebody contacted me that I used to work with years ago, because they want me to, orchestrate some, orchestrate some hymns for Christmas services at another church, at a church that I don't even attend. So I'm going to book all the musicians, write the music, and then there it is, right? And I'll be playing at a different church at the time. When they're doing that, I'll be somewhere else, right? So people don't like it when you can do that kind of stuff. They don't like that, because their time is their money. But that's not the case for me. My time is not my money. It's my intellectual property. It's this other stuff. Yeah, certainly an aspect of my time is my money, but when you have this residual stuff going on, you have all these other things that you can do, then, so now, so some of those rules that they have, when there's like, no moonlighting, or, this is a full-time job, and, and all this kind of stuff, and you can't be taking these other jobs if it's taking you away from our stuff. All of that kind of stuff is because most people can't do a bunch of stuff, not that well, right? And so in a matter of speaking, I kind of understand why some of that stuff exists, based on the sort of normie, the ham and egger, as CGA puts it.
So you made a good observation there, or you made an apt observation about people not liking this many hats thing. And perhaps Dr. K, if you're still there, because I think I heard your microphone drop or something. Maybe they finally got you. He was a good man. Shout out to Dr. K. Rest in peace. But if you're still there, perhaps you can comment on this thing about many hats and people not liking it. Perhaps maybe what the psychology behind that is, or your any personal experience with that. I guess he isn't there.
Uh-oh. It would be a terrible tragedy and bad joke. Huge, terrible humor. If it actually did happen to him.
If it actually did happen, I heard like sounds like. Anyways, so this has been a rather by the way, this particular mimetic theory, the copying, okay?
Yeah, I think I'm back.
Okay, you're back. Okay, cool. So many hats, which was the question. Did you hear the question? Care to comment?
Yeah, I had the question. Yeah. So, anyways, sorry about that, guys. My microphone dropped. Anyways, no, my mixer dropped. Yeah, I was actually listening to what Dr. Thunder was talking about. The multiplicity thing. I think there's definitely different elements. To know which one is more important in why the fear is so strong in them. Let me just name a few, and then we'll see if we can figure out which one's more important. Like I mentioned earlier, I think companies in general are afraid because they operate under. Okay, when I was young, I used to work in a car valet place. It's a car dealership. I used to kind of like clean the cars, make sure that they look brand new, doing the whole touches and all that kind of stuff. And what I noticed there is that the multiplicity theory is this: is people are afraid if you are going to just leave them, right? They think if you get more skilled, you in other areas, they're not really afraid that you're not going to do the job properly, right? They're afraid that you're going to leave them. And in cases where they do have fear of you not doing the job properly, is because of as Dr. Tan mentioned about the whole time aspect.
Okay, so take a
They
pause
look at
there.
time
I
linearly.
want to pause you there for just for a second. This is specific to, let's say, like an employer whom is needing your services, someone whom is needing you, and then if you have these multiple hats, they're afraid that you're going to leave them. But also, is this kind of analogous to, let's say, somebody there's no leaving them, maybe they're your colleague or something, and the kind of leaving that you would do is like they don't have
You
anything to
remember
hold you
Muma,
down
right?
because they can't get in a particular. If you're one-dimensional, then they can
Mhm.
get their hooks in you and get in their particular relationship, mimetic dance
Right.
with you, either competition or hatred or
Mhm.
whatever, rivalry. But if you have too many hats, they're like they can't get a hold of you. So it's not just that you're an employer; they may
Right.
just be in a social entanglement. People in the social entanglement can't find a way to keep
Yeah,
you
'cause
somehow
we
with all these
think
many hats that you seem to
Mhm.
have. They don't know what Dr. Thunder is going to do today. You are that erratic person, Dr. Thunder, that you're claiming you're not.
Yeah.
But anyways,
No, it's true.
go ahead.
Yeah, because look, imagine right, multi-instrumental extraordinaire, right? Is well spoken, intelligent, has all the markers for success. So why would you not want to put him into like a box? Because boxes control people in general. And you remember like Muma, right?
Mhm.
Muma is a perfect example of this antithesis. Muma is a person that's looking, one of your previous employees. He's looking for a specific role and a specific task because he is one-dimensional, right? But he's not willing to kind of do this whole thing that Dr. Tan is doing, different streams of income. So Muma is the people who they expect everybody else in, and that's the model that they have, and they want everybody else to have that similar model because there is a lot of, you can kind of predict his behavior. He's going to need you. If he loses his job, that's it for him. He's got a wife, he's got a kid. There's a certain flow rate that if the job is no longer there, Muma is effed up, so to speak. So I think that's really the main influence. Whether it's really the whole, because clearly, look, we're not doing business for evidence-based approaches. A lot of it is FE, extroverted feeling. It's a lot about community. It's all about rules. Because I've been told by people, teachers mostly, do you think you're special? I mean, look, in my head, I was like, well, yeah, clearly I am, right? Because I'm able to X, Y, Z, right? But you can't say that. It's all about the community, the rules, expectations, and you not sticking out.
No, that is very well put. Peter Thiel did mention the extroverted NBA students without any conviction or any
particular
original idea
conviction.
or original thoughts ever, and that yeah, that this is the thing that we're talking about. This is the thing that we're trying to break out of, and I think that there are many other, shall we say, talks on this same book, like other where he sits down and then somebody interviews him. I think we might do that next week to kind of, because obviously this is just a very short talk and we can see that there's a lot of depth to what he's saying, that it can be applied all the way across, right? Started out with this whole kind of authenticity, starting something new idea. How do you teach how to start something new? If you're trying to copy Mark Zuckerberg, you're not really learning from him, because the next Mark Zuckerberg is not going to start a social media site or social networking site. Taking from that, look, and then bringing in this kind of mimetic theory, showing that that's what all this competition, keeping up with the Joneses, winning all these tournament type style events in education, right? And then you get stuck in this law firm and your identity now is all about the tournaments you won. How could you leave? You are the guy who won those tournaments. Okay, if you leave you leave the tournament now, like who the hell are you, right? So how people get wrapped up in that and how that kind of thinking in a larger scale it affects businesses and people lying about competition versus monopoly and all that, which is just so rather rich and interesting, but very simple idea. It's almost like you have this simple, people copy each other, and then you just see this at whatever scale you want to look at it at, you see all kinds of manifestations of this copying, and which is, by the way, a good insight that the non-neurotypical people have, the weirdo hyper individualists have. They have this particular insight into design by committee, right? You probably, Dr. Thunder, are not a committee type guy. And the insight that I suggest with regards to this topic that someone like you has is you understand that a committee is only just going to be looking to each other. That a committee is not gonna. You're not gonna get unique individuals telling their idea and then come some kind of interface. No, they're gonna just be looking to the other person, reflecting mirror neurons going crazy. Okay, they even start taking the same poses, as we can see from all the, we know all the studies and stuff, like how people literally mirror each other. Like, it's not even, I mean, it's not even up for debate. It's not even a joke. It's funny, even, like, it's so funny. And I think that some of us just have that particular, it's just a personality thing, but that's the insight that we see, and it's a valuable insight to see that all this kind of committee, kumbaya, people, we the people, we must all, it is nothing other than just, let's get into this thing. We start copying each other, start trying to differentiate in rivalry and this and that. Nothing real is going on there that you might think is going on, right? Or that they claim, or unique individuals are going to come together and share. No, that's not what people do when they come together, right? They do what the MBA people do. They all graduate and go into the wrong field, which was last decade's field or some ish like that. But anyways, Dr. Thunder, you got a show tomorrow that you want to let the people know about?
Yeah, I got Thunder's Thoughts, and the show's called Is SYSBM Really the Same as Divestment? And my co-host is Mr. Z, the very well-spoken. Actually, I think he's a Nigerian brother too. I don't know what's up with all these Africans. So anyhow, yeah, he's co-hosting. That's going to be a very good show. Really looking forward to that. I've been getting some CGA's been shouting me out pretty frequently over the last few weeks, and that's been very cool. So Thunder's Thoughts. And although we said that Case Closed would be on my channel, I actually have another concert this Sunday, so it needs to be on your channel.
You're having an interesting year, it seems, or an interesting summer or fall.
Yeah, stuff has just started to explode, and which is good. It's a good.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean it's a good thing.
Wow,
Game Changer says too many Africans.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Too many Africans.
Oh,
Like,
now
what's up,
it's
man?
all gonna start.
Yeah, we FBA up in here.
What's all this? What is that?
These freaking Africans, get these jive turkeys out of here. No, but these dusty Africans, ashy foot. So yeah, so I've got that going on, and I've been doing these impromptus with a greater regularity, and those I think have been going well, and people dig those, and so I'm going to keep those coming on kind of a range of topics. Today's talk was about let's see, what was it? It was about this idea that Black education is inherently inferior. This business, which of course is not true, but language to that effect actually appeared in Brown versus Board of Education, which we focus on positive aspects of that legislation. Obviously, stuff like gaining access to better resources for purposes of education for Black folks. So yes, that's positive, but it was another way that they sort of a very clever way. Well, Black folks really need white folks to legitimize their inherently unequal.
Do those words? Oh, yeah. I guess the words. I'm not going to take it completely out of context, but even within context, yes, the whole case is to say, hey, rather than say, yeah, separate and then let's develop. It's
Right.
saying we must remove the separation because separation is inevitably, inherently going to be unequal. Okay,
Right.
fair. That was today. Yeah, I think I heard that one. I heard you going
Yeah. That was today.
going on
And,
about Malcolm X.
Yeah. So, having some different kind of conversations, and it's been interesting. I'm gonna keep those coming, and pretty soon here I'm gonna restart or reboot the Conversations with Dr. Thunder series. I've been kind of on pause with that, but that'll be coming pretty soon. So, yeah, then be back here on Wednesday. Well, back here on Sunday for Case
Back here
Closed.
on Sunday for Case
on
Closed.
at-
Back here on Wednesday for Getting Ish Done. And Case Closed is 4 p.m. Eastern
Yeah.
time. And it'll be on this
Yeah,
channel.
Yeah, on Sunday. The next week it will be on my channel, and then I've got something else that's a conflict of next week, and then we'll do like 2 or 3 in a row or something on my channel after that or something. But we'll get that together, no big deal. But come and check Thunder's Thoughts out tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mr. Z is the co-host. We've got a full show, pre-show, great music, Simp Anthem of the Week, TikTok Theater. And of course, the main attraction is SYSBM, really the same as divestment. And so that'll be a really provocative, topic and good discussion to be had.
When we talk about Cynthia G, or I don't know, I think it's Cynthia G. I don't know which one, whom is whom. But yes, it is Cynthia G. Okay, so...
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, okay, we will continue this conversation actually next week and continue with the idea of mimesis, the idea of the fact that we are drawn and motivated by competition, but underlying that competition really is a idea to copy others. We're copying others' desires, right? And this copying of others' desires, keeping up with the Joneses, wanting to win the tournament of whom gets into Harvard or whatever. This is all a copying game and a competition game. And then we may need to stop and interrogate perhaps what is the root cause of all this? Why do we want what we want, right? To get some more clarity as to that. Because there is this other pool, which is a call for uniqueness, for authenticity, for taking the path less traveled, which is the opposite of competition, which goes into more being of a monopoly. And then looking at monopolies, because this was a book that we were looking at regarding startups in the technology field, looking at the good aspects of monopoly, that if you are a monopoly, you can indeed save up these reserves, okay, such that you can participate in research and development and continue to do more, shall we say, new things, right? You can afford to go off the beaten path. You're not in a place where perfect competition completely eats away all the profits, which is what perfect competition is there to do. So understanding this mimesis, this very basic idea that monkey see, monkey do, that you don't want all the things you want, okay? I'm not talking about your basic needs such as air and feeding. No, those are different. But I'm talking about you wanting the red ball. All that stuff typically is a question of modeling and copying other people. And it is such a powerful force. It is manifest in many, many aspects of our lives. And it is also a way to look at the economy, a way to look at how to there's so many layers to this, and I think we'll continue next week is basically what I'm saying. Okay, you're gonna follow the pack, keeping up with the Joneses, caught in mimetic rivalries and following tracks to particular outcomes, becoming a gray, undifferentiated mass with everybody else lacking completely in conviction and inspiration, or are you gonna become a monopoly, a more unique, finding the secrets, if you will, is the question. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, and shout out to Technological Chaos. See that you came in late, you missed this one, but it'll be a nice one to repeat, because yes, we did review 0 to 1. Well, not really review 0 to 1. We can't get past I think our limit is like 7 minutes. 7-minute videos, Dr. Thunder. It takes about an hour and a half to do a 7-minute video, apparently. But we will continue on this idea of mimesis, because here's one thing. There's a guy called Rene Girard. I think Dr. K referenced him. And he takes this theory of mimesis all the way through to Christianity, or in terms of explaining Christianity, if you will, in the sense of, if you imagine us copying each other, right? We're going to copy each other, and it's a powder keg for violence, right? And what tends to happen is when we reach critical mass of this kind of heat of us copying each other, this mimetic rivalry. I want what you want what I want. You took this other peace leaf from me 2 generations, but whatever. In this particular area, we tend to, as human beings, and this is just a fact, observable, empirically true, that we find a scapegoat, and then we channel all that hatred right towards them, right? And that this scapegoat brings up this sacrifice question, which is pertinent to the Christianity question, right? Generally speaking, I'm just going to say that part, that's how the connection begins. But also within Christianity, you can see, for example, the opposite of mimetic violence when Jesus saw the stone throwing about to take place and say, "He who without sin cast the first stone." That's a way of breaking that chain of they were about to go through that thing where, we're about to start. After the first stone is cast, it gets easier and easier to cast. Like the 50th stone is like water, right? Like that's the way the whole mimetic thing would have happened. But you can break it if you consciously, anyways. So there are many things, there are many layers to this whole copying thing, right? And it's not saying that it is some kind of mythical, crazy truth. It's just saying that, we just noticed something about these social creatures called human beings, which is a very simple little thing that they have that just then manifests itself in layers and layers and layers of their organization, all the way to certain strange behaviors that they have, such as sacrificing and creating scapegoats and stuff like that, as a way of kind of, we call it catharsis, right? This is the word, a cathartic event to kind of get rid of all that, because again, even in religious texts, the sins get put on the scapegoat, right? And the scapegoat is sent away. Okay, so all this type of stuff, okay, these are the depths I'm saying to which this basic kind of simple lens goes. And we're just starting here talking about striking a new path and getting some dollars out of it. But there's much more to be gotten out of it for those whom dare to venture. But anyways, we're gone. Shout out to those people in the chat. Shout out to those of you whom did not super chat this time, but will gladly do, I'm sure, next time, or within the next 45 seconds while the music plays, maybe we'll get a super chat. Well, I don't know. Let's see, Dr. Thunder. But peace.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach.
All right. Shout out to Technological Chaos. Okay. That was very, very, very good of you. You did indeed come through in the clutch. So because of that, I'm going to do the outro song live, right? Rather than that played version that you were just hearing, we're going to do the outro song live out here for Technological Chaos and whatnot, right? In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons will breach the towers and the proof is run, come make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated, Lord. Run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come with the rubble steady rising. Hearts are compromising, conditions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The feast are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are appalling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised. The battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your... You know what I'm saying?